What y'all been up to this week?
Well, it's only Tuesday. Finally starting to get back in routine. Vacation yesterday. It was nice to go, but thankful to be back in routine.
Yeah, I hear you. I think me and you have that in common. We're very routine oriented.
Yes.
Routines are good, but it's also nice to catch a break from that from time to time.
I love my kids, but I'm ready to get them in bed at 8:30.
Oh yeah, I understand.
Vacation, man, it pushed it back, way back.
Yeah.
10:30, 11 o'clock. Oh boy.
Yeah, I remember you saying you really didn't get much sleep, and I know I've heard plenty of parents say that a vacation as a parent is really not that much of a vacation.
What is a vacation?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll get better as they get a little older.
Oh yeah, we had a blast.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
just had a blast.
Yeah, it's still fun, and even though I'm not a parent, in my experience, parents always end up looking back on times when their kids were young and wishing they had
Wishing we can go back.
yeah, and valued that more. So
For sure.
there's definitely struggles, but I guess I'd just say according to them, enjoy it while it's there, because it's
Right.
only there temporarily. So
Chris, what about you, man?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, been a
Good talk.
been a good week. Been a good week.
Good.
Looking forward to the talk today for sure.
Yes.
You're talking about routine. It's funny how people that have been in the military, for some reason, they get used to routine. I don't know why, but
yeah, that's probably part of it for sure. The military forces you to be pretty ridiculous with not only a routine but also punctuality and
Showing
being
up on time.
Yeah,
Which is early.
yeah,
well, nobody wants to see people show up late to a war. I mean,
yeah. But and I mean, don't get me wrong, showing up on time was important, but if you show up on time but you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, that's that's a problem too. So
man.
Mm-hmm.
but anyway,
It was good. Good to be back.
yeah, glad to have you back.
Yes.
We got 3 people today, which is cool. And so today the theme is taxes and asset protection. Well, I guess before we get into that, we can talk a little bit about some current event stuff. I don't know if you guys have heard about a shooting that took place recently, but unfortunately, I mean, it could just be that I don't expose myself to I don't know, the media as much as I used to. I mean, I still look up news stories for the purpose of the podcast, but
Yeah.
I'm not always in the news like I sometimes used to be. But anyway, my point with that is that it's been a little while, fortunately, since I've seen anything in the news about a shooting in the U.S. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know we've had plenty, but I was disappointed to see this story. It sounds like there were 3 shooters and 2 were killed and 9 were injured, and some of those were teenagers. So as those of you listening, as you continue to listen to the podcast, you'll notice that I'm very pro Constitution and pro Bill of Rights, including the Second Amendment, but I also acknowledge that there needs to be some responsibility that comes along with that. So I hope that we can continue to find ways to protect innocent people from, you're never going to completely eliminate violence, but we can definitely do more. And I hope that we can find ways to do more without taking away people's rights.
Yeah.
Well, as the old saying goes, anywhere there's a right, there's going to be people that want to abuse it.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
That's true. And speaking of sort of making things more secure, there's this company, and I'm not saying they're the answer for everything, but there is a company that I'm hoping will make a positive impact on that front, and they are called Nightscope. They're like a robotic security company, and they're publicly listed, I think, on the NASDAQ. So I'm hoping that I know one of Nightscope's goals is to get in more school systems. And they're already in some universities and airports and stuff like that. So maybe we'll see the continued expansion of them, and that'll help make hopefully make situations like that far less common. That's
Right.
my hope.
Mhm.
But
Kevin, when I first became aware of apparatus like this, it was the bomb drones. They were the first machines that I have seen that would be able to take the place of a man doing a job like that.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure those have been super helpful, especially for soldiers overseas dealing with IEDs and yeah, I'm hoping, you know, you can never completely, in my opinion, replace human law enforcement and security guards, but we can definitely give them more tools to help them do their job better. And so, you know, I hope these Nightscope robots will be helpful on that front. But yeah, anybody else got any thoughts on the shooting or?
I mean, see where one is in fatal condition right now, or whatever that word is.
Critical.
Critical condition, yeah. Fatal,
Critical condition.
Yeah,
Yeah, if they're in fatal condition, they are bad off.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I'm sorry, I read
Well,
that wrong. It's one person in stable condition. Looks like all the other 8, are not doing well.
well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, I had that
I hate to
backwards.
hear that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll just ask everybody to pray for those guys. Because unfortunately, we really shouldn't be laughing at all because I think most of those victims were pretty young teenagers. So, and not that adult lives are any less important than teenager lives, but you know, I would just
Well,
ask
you
you
hate to see someone so young,
yeah,
Mhm.
it's disappointing when you see young folks involved in such a high degree of violence, and I'll have to find out another time. I don't even know that much information about the shooters, so I don't know if the shooters were teenagers or adults or what, but in my opinion, if they were over the age of even 14, they need to be held severely accountable. Because I don't know about y'all, but when I was a teenager, I knew what I was doing. I'm not saying they shouldn't be given some leniency, but sometimes I think we're a little bit too soft on teenagers. But my only point with that being that, like I said, when I was a teenager, don't get me wrong. I mean, I went through mood swings like plenty of other teenagers do, but
What's changed? I'm just kidding.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, yeah, sometimes I still do. Even adults switch moods, but
I had to mute my mic and laugh.
I heard you anyway.
Yeah, I did too.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I know that I still made premeditated decisions even as a teenager. So
Well, if you look at, and again, I'm not equating all cultures, but if you look at the Jewish culture, when you have your bar mitzvah, that you're coming of age for a boy becoming a man in their culture. And that happens at age 13, I believe. Yeah, 13.
Bar
where,
mitzvah.
Where they, where they officially in their culture become a man. And that's at 13. They're
Yeah.
saying, hey, you're responsible for your decisions. And I kind of agree with that.
yeah, I mean, I think especially prior to modern society, whatever period you want to say is considered modern society, I think people used to treat people as adults much younger than we do now. And
I'm saying that, for instance, certain crimes that we have in our nation, you're 15, 16, 17 years old, and you're viewed as a child. And then 1 year later at 18, you're viewed as an adult. Now I know some of these crimes they are designated and they are tried as an adult. I get that, but I do believe in certain instances that some crimes where people get off by going to or getting a juvenile sentence for those crimes is just way off base.
yeah, no, we could definitely adapt better, and I don't know exactly what age or what the solution would be, but like you said, it's odd for somebody to just, like a switch flips at 18 and all of a sudden, you're in a whole different world than you were at 17 is kind of is a little strange, but yeah, as far as other current events type stuff, I was kind of looking to see earlier what's been going on with Russia and Ukraine and Israel and Gaza, and so far all I can see is that Trump is still really angry with, with Russia and Putin, because I think he was expecting Putin to be more willing to broker some sort of peace deal, and so far that is not. He seems to only be getting more aggressive in some instances, so we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Hopefully that doesn't continue to be a problem for a long time, but I don't know. It's not looking good for right now. Hopefully that gets better. And then, at this point, I'm sure everybody is well aware of what's going on with Gaza. I did see one positive note about that, in that it sounds like they got some more aid to the people of Gaza, but, I think there's still, from my understanding, a lot of violence, destruction, and death going on there. So I would just ask everybody, keep those folks in your prayers, and don't forget about them. You guys got any thoughts on any of that stuff?
No.
No, sir.
Y'all are. All right. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and, I guess, talk about investing stuff. So, taxes and asset protection. Those of you that are, I know we have a lot of listeners that are outside of the United States, so know that when I talk about these things, I'm talking about how they apply to U.S. law. Maybe eventually I can start educating myself more on how they work in other nations, but just keep in mind when we talk about these things, these are things that you can do within the United States to lower your liabilities, and they may or may not work in other countries. But I'm sure you guys will have similar methods that you can use to take more precautions, I guess we'd say. So in the United States, if you start a business, some of the main things that you have to choose from is like a sole proprietorship, a single member LLC, or, you also have S Corps, C Corps, partnerships. And one of the nice things about an LLC is, my understanding is, you can sort of designate the LLC to be any of these types of entities that you want, for tax purposes or tax benefits anyway. And if you don't know what an LLC is, that just stands for limited liability company or corporation. And the purpose of forming these entities is to try to, just like the name says, reduce your liability. So basically what you're doing when you create one of these is you're putting a box around whatever business that LLC is for. So let's say, for instance, and let me just say this before I keep going with this. I'm not an attorney and I'm not an accountant, so this isn't as much my area of expertise as the stock market is, but I've started to learn a little bit about it. But anyway, to continue going, now I lost my train of thought. What was I? What was I talking about there? Somebody remind me. Man, I'm getting no help today. Okay, let me kind of go in reverse a
LLCs, S
little
corps,
bit.
C corps, partnerships.
All right, so what you're doing, what you're trying to do with an LLC, I think where I was going at was you're trying to put a box around the business. So say somebody comes along and attempts to bring a lawsuit against you or sue the business. Theoretically, putting a box around it with an LLC enables them to only go after the money from the company itself. So in other words, it's supposed to prevent them from being able to touch any personal assets of yours. So like, let's say my business did something and they got sued, whatever money is in that business, they can potentially go after, but they shouldn't be able to come after my home or my personal vehicle, stuff like that. So, and my understanding is as people get wealthier, they tend to create more than one LLC. And I mean, you see this with big companies too. I want to say they're sometimes called umbrella corporations or umbrella LLCs, where you'll have a holding company and then several other companies underneath that holding company. I think that's become much more common. And all of that is mostly to, provide that liability protection. But some of these.
What would, and I don't mean to put you on the spot if I
No,
am,
go ahead.
what would be the advantage to choosing one of these others over LLC?
Yeah. So, well, I want to say, and I could be wrong, but I want to say LLCs are one of the more modern creations. Like I think C corps and S corps and partnerships have existed far before LLCs became a thing. So
probably the majority of what's being created now is LLCs.
well, I think they're far more common now because you can technically, from my understanding, designate an LLC as any of these other entities. So, I mean, people can still start S corps and C corps and partnerships, but an LLC sort of gives you the ability to pick all of the above, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Or any of the above. You can't be all of them, but you can pick one of them. And I want to say a C corp. I could be a little bit off on this. Again, I didn't do some of your own research on this because I'm not an attorney or an accountant, but I want to say the C corp designation gives you an automatic 20% flat tax, which may still sound kind of high, but it's a lot better than the 37% normal top rate. And then S corps, I think the reason that an S corp is helpful with taxes is because the way that an S corp works is you're required to pay yourself a fair salary, and I want to say that is the only real the only main rule there. So
I have two questions regarding what you just said.
yeah.
Number one, I guess I could flip that around and ask, are there any disadvantages to being an LLC? And regarding your S corp, talking about the S corp a second ago, who decides what a fair salary is?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked because I was trying to go into that. Well, tell me the first question again.
Well, are there any disadvantages to being an LLC?
Disadvantages. Honestly, I would not off the top of my head. No, I would say in most instances you're better off. I mean, I'm sure there are some disadvantages, but I would say that there are more advantages than disadvantages. I've there's this guy that I watch on YouTube a lot that specializes in this sort of thing, and his name I believe is Toby Mathis. And if you listen to him talk about these entities, he he says over and over again that if you are considered a single entity, like a single member or a sole proprietorship, he claims that they disproportionately get audited a lot more by the IRS than any of these others do. So
Hmm.
in the past, at least, the IRS views most mom and pop shops as an easier target than they do these other entities. So when you form one of these other entities, it tends to make them be a little bit more, they take a look at it and say, this guy seems like he might know what he's doing. We might better find somebody else to pick on.
Which is probably off the subject, but one of the cool things about having an accountant instead of doing your own taxes is because, and I know there are some exceptions out there. I'm not saying every accountant is a good one, but uh, one of the good things about having an accountant is if you are audited, they take care of all that stuff for you.
Yeah, no, I would. A lot of people still like to do their own taxes, but especially if you're going to get involved in any kind of business, and if you aren't planning to get involved in any type of business, then I would ask you why not.
We have
um,
we had a business, my wife and I, and had a really good tax guy, and I never worried about any of that because they always took care of all that kind of stuff.
yeah, no, excuse me. I would strongly recommend that people use an accountant or a professional to help them because
Honestly, in the big scheme of things, you're not saving that much money by doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Compared to relatively what it costs, it's not that expensive.
yeah, well, the other beautiful thing too in the United States, I want to say this is still the case that even the fee that you have to pay them is a tax write off. So
Right.
I mean, honestly, to me, there's really no reason not to use them.
Mhm. Especially with all that can go wrong, you doing your own taxes.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that.
I mean, you're less likely to get audited, right? If you have a CPA or an accountant.
I don't know if they alone that could be true, but I do know that the more things that you have in place, like we're talking about with these entities, I know once you create a certain entity, um it makes you less likely to get audited.
Well, I just think there's more of a risk doing it yourself,
Oh yeah, no,
right?
that yeah,
For getting audited.
yeah, no. You're much more likely, in my opinion, to make mistakes if you do it yourself.
Yeah.
As opposed to hiring somebody that has been doing it for years.
And a lot of times, and I'm not saying this is across the board, but a lot of times I've seen accountants say, if we make a mistake, we will eat the penalty for it. So that's a good part of having a reputable accountant, that they put their reputation for doing things right on the line like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I, that's man, what's wrong with me today? That's a good quality for somebody to have.
That's right. That's right.
Not many people are willing to stake their own reputation on something, so that definitely would
Well,
be.
that is their business. They should know what they're doing.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, for sure. And it's definitely gonna. I would think that would bring you more business. People seeing that you're
Willing to risk your
risk your own.
license.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as far as if I keep talking about tax benefits, or like we were talking about with paying yourself a salary with S corp, oh man, I'm gonna have to look this up actually, because Let me see. I forget what the actual number is on how S corps are taxed. How S corp. Let me see if AI will help me elaborate on this a little bit. Like I said, I know you have to pay yourself a salary, and then you're taxed somehow off of that salary. But I know I've heard S corps be talked about a lot as one of the lower tax liabilities entities that you can create, but I can't remember what the specific percentage is that you're taxed, and that's what I was trying to find. Let's see here. Following guide. S corp profits can, let's see, is determined by their individual income tax rate, which can be anywhere from 10 to 37%. So I guess really the main benefit of the S corp is, if you pay yourself a very modest salary, then you're just, because you're paying yourself a smaller salary, you're going to be taxed to a smaller degree. So I think the lack of wording by the IRS as to what a fair salary is, I think that's one of the keys too. You could determine that a fair salary, well, I'm only going to pay myself $10,000, So I think that's what makes it a powerful entity for some, is because, they can give themselves a disproportionately lower salary than maybe they should.
An answer here that says that LLCs have the option to elect to be taxed as a C corp or an S corp, and that generally the self-employment rate is 15.3%, but currently the tax rate on a C corp is 21%. And
21%.
That's right. And see, this is where I guess you would. This would be a disadvantage for an LLC, is that, not only do you get taxed as an LLC, you also get taxed as an individual as well, and that's really, like, I guess, getting taxed twice. But and like I said, the C corp right now, the current tax rate is 21%, and it says the S corp, losses and profits will be passed through to members, and it would be taxed in their personal income.
Yeah. Yeah, I know C corps used to be the most popular one for large, and I mean that's why we call them corporations, large corporations. But I think yeah, LLCs designated as S corps have become a little more popular in recent years. But even though that C corp, most people think that automatically gives you a higher tax rate, and it sort of does. There are at least a few benefits that come with that, and you have to decide for yourself whether the benefits are worth it or not. My understanding is one of the benefits that comes with it is that you can deduct certain insurance premiums, I want to say, or I don't know if premium is the right word, but there's some sort of insurance benefit to that you can have with a C corp that you can't have with the others. Like, I want to say you can't write off insurance costs as an S corp, at least when it comes to, like, let's say health insurance. But I want to say with a C corp you can.
Well, depending on how many employees you had, that would be a huge benefit.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, as a large company, or a large corporation, it might very well be more beneficial for them to label themselves as a C corp, just for that reason of, I want to say they're called fringe benefits. Let me
Especially if you are a small business, And as far as setting them up goes, isn't the LLC the easiest to set up?
Yes, by far. I mean, at least my understanding is setting up an LLC is far easier. If you were to set up a C corp or an S corp the traditional way, you've got to, I want to say, have a board of directors, and you've got to hold uh, periodic
No,
meetings,
we
and
ain't going into all that.
yeah, and if you want to go public as a corporation, you have to, keep track or keep audited financials that you have to give to the Securities and Exchange Commission, and so yeah, they definitely have.
No, we ain't going public either.
No, I mean, unless you plan on selling, which I mean, really and truly, that's the reason that most of them go public is because they're ready to start selling off some of the business. Um, but yeah, I would say a lot of people have no reason to go public. Or but if you are going to go public, you definitely have to be ready for the I guess the mountain of paperwork that you got to go through.
And just from some of the stuff you said there, I think some people may get the wrong impression about what taking your company public and going to the stock market means as well. A lot of people, I think, don't truly understand that that's what you're doing when you sell stock is you're selling off your company.
Yeah. Yep. That's and sometimes I mean a lot of companies that go public. I mean, you can use Tesla as an example again. Elon Musk took Tesla public, and you could argue that that's the reason why it's been given such a rich valuation. So, had Tesla only ever been private and never gone public, as opposed to Elon being worth 400 billion plus now, or Tesla being worth, I don't know, somewhere from 700 billion to a trillion. If it was a private company, somebody could value it for half that or less. So, but yeah, valuation, what the value of the company is, mainly matters. Like you said, if you're getting ready to sell off the equity, so well, as soon as you list shares publicly, that's what you're doing. You're allowing people to buy into the business, and also what you're doing is you're exposing yourself to a lot more liability, because if the company doesn't perform well or like people expect, they can come together and do a lawsuit against you, shareholder lawsuit or so it can be advantageous if you want a lot of other investors, but just like anything else, everything's a double-edged sword. There's advantages and disadvantages. So.
I guess I haven't really put a lot of thought into this, so I'm gonna dump the question on you. At what point does a company think about going public instead of private, and how do they know that I guess that they're losing money by not going public?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm gonna sort of make my best educated guess because I'm not even sure if I have all the answers on that one, but I think it's really just if the company decides that they need help from other investors, or they'd rather not take on all the risk themselves anymore. And like I said, if they want to cash in and take some profits, all of those, my understanding, are reasons for them to go public. So I feel like typically, there are some exceptions, of course, but I feel like most businesses only go public after they feel like they've, I don't know, gotten big to the point to where it's becoming difficult for them to manage by themselves as a private entity. And also, I'm trying to think of his name.
Right, because there's some disadvantages to going public, right? You lose a certain portion of your control, right? When you
Oh
go
yeah,
public.
yeah, for sure. I would actually say that's one of the I don't know, I guess bigger disadvantages of going public is, especially if the stock experiences trouble or the value goes way down, whereas you, the CEO and or owner, might have had the largest stake. If that stock takes a hit, let's say somebody like BlackRock or Vanguard comes along, and now all of a sudden they have a higher stake than the owner of the company does, and that usually means that they're going to have more voting power. And in some instances, they can decide that, hey, this guy's no longer qualified to lead this company, and they can push you out.
Right.
So
Which
yeah.
has happened many times in many companies.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I want to say the term for that is hostile takeover.
Right. It would be
So
hostile in my eyes
yeah.
if it was my company.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just one of those things though. If you involve more people and
But I mean, by going public, you're also reducing your risk, right? As the sole proprietor.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're definitely, or you're at least spreading it out amongst more people, I guess would be the best way to say it, as opposed to just you having all the risk. Now, any investor that buys shares potentially carries some of that liability.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I don't know if that fully answered your question. And I know that a bunch of different companies can have all different kinds of reasons for why they decide to go public. But I think chief among those reasons is they just, want to reduce some of their own exposure and just want to collect some profits from.
Well, I was going to say I don't believe any of them would consider going public if it wasn't uh, financially beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that they're always going to weigh the pros and the cons. So, and sometimes, another reason why people go public, and this is something I meant to say earlier, they tend to have much more access to additional capital when they go public. So, in other words, it becomes easier to not only borrow money potentially, but also to, you know, they can release more shares, which unfortunately, when a company adds more shares, it dilutes already existing investors typically. But but to raise additional funds if the company isn't profitable yet, they typically either have to add more shares, which like I said dilutes people, or they have to, take on more debt. And so going public, I want to say typically it it just makes access to debt easier and slightly cheaper if I'm not mistaken.
Gotcha.
Um so and no company wants to have to operate as an unprofitable entity, but I think a lot of technology companies sort of face this dilemma because we all know that engineers and software engineers and all these tech guys typically make pretty good money, and they're pretty expensive. And just parts for the technology is expensive as well. So a lot of these new up and coming technology companies require a lot of help, because they're just very difficult to bring to profitability. Um, and so you might have a new technology that solves a lot of problems, but initially they may just have trouble turning a profit, I guess is, the only way I can think to say it. They might be doing really good things and have a really good product and or service, but you know, like I want to say Uber, up until a few years ago, I think Uber was still pretty unprofitable. I want to say they're profitable now, but and Tesla was unprofitable when they first started too. So
Now, I know it doesn't happen a lot, but Kevin, I have seen at least a couple of stories in my lifetime where uh, the developers of a company that went public decided to go private, and they bought back all their stock. I mean, and I know that it's happened because I've seen that. Have you seen those things before like that?
yeah, I don't know a ton of examples, but I know that Elon a few times has talked about doing that with. I think at first he was talking about doing that with Twitter and or X. Or I think it is private now. I want to say X is private now.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't know exactly how that affects investors when something like that happens. I want to say
Well, I'm
that
sure they just get the value of whatever their stock is, right? And they go home, right? So
that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that's what happens. They just get bought out, basically. I know that's
and
what.
Is it just the way that that stock is or however, I don't guess I know what I'm saying about that. Whatever the stock, however it's written up, is it like what do you call those things? You have to accept the terms and whatever.
Terms and conditions.
Yeah, is it terms and conditions of the stock? Is that what determines if the owner can buy that stuff back with and you not having any control over that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's in the prospectus, but yeah, typically if you go to a company's investor relations page, somewhere under there, one of those documents will outline the risks and what your rights are and so on. Then yeah, usually owners, continue to hold that right that they can always decide to go private. I want to say most of them that go public don't go back private again, but like you said, there are sometimes examples of when that does happen. And yeah, I think outlined in that agreement somewhere, it just says that, this is just my best guess, but they probably just say we retain the right to, to take this organization private and pay investors for their stake in the company. I mean, but that's just my best guess. I'm not, I don't know with 100% certainty that that's what it would say, but
Sure. Hey Ryan, just a second ago I got way loud.
You got way loud?
Way loud.
Is that better?
No, I'm still like there. Let's see.
you're all,
No. I'm way hot.
that's just how you wait, I don't hear myself
There
at all.
we go. That's better. That's a little bit better. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Kevin, do you hear yourself?
I guess.
I mean, in my head. Oh, wait, now I do.
I
Yeah.
guess we're gonna have to.
Whew. Now I don't hear
Get a
myself.
I have no
Happy
idea what happened. I
medium.
wasn't touching anything.
I don't hear myself in my headphones again. Wait. Okay. Now I hear myself.
You just like it loud, huh?
No.
I
I
think
mean,
Ryan-
Chris, are you down?
Ryan's doing that on purpose, man.
I couldn't hear myself in my headphones at all. I mean, I hear myself.
I
now.
can hear myself. It's a little bit lower, but I can hear myself. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well,
Sorry.
no,
There
it's
you
all
go.
good. Technical difficulties.
Absolutely. We have to have technical difficulties. Ryan's back.
Yeah.
Hey,
That ADD's just going wild over there.
it is, man. It's so bad.
Oh man, I lost my train of thought again. Oh, we were talking about potentially going private, but yeah, that's my understanding of how that works. And like I said, if somebody goes to merge and acquire a company, I think that also works in a similar way in that the investors of the acquired company, well, I want to say they're typically given the option of accepting a buyout for their shares or being given the opportunity to purchase shares of the new entity. Man.
And I can see where some it would be beneficial, because if you're specifically if you own a company that has that deals in situations where they're heavily invested in things like research and development, I'm sure that companies like that need money, and they use whatever those investments are for their R&D departments. However, if you're just a company that is a retail company and you're just looking at profits by selling things, I'm not so sure that it would be as beneficial.
Yeah. I guess they just sort of have to wait for themselves.
Pros and cons of it.
Yeah, pros and cons, and what's more beneficial. Yeah.
Back on the Elon Musk thing, real quick with
Mhm.
Tesla. Isn't he the only like car dealer that's not doesn't have any debt, or when I say not bankrupt or something like that, or
Well,
didn't go bankrupt?
my I don't. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm some expert on car companies, but
Or he's the only one making money in the car dealership area?
I don't. He's not the only one making money, but
Oh, okay.
it is a very tough business to your point, which uh it's a tough business to make money in. You know, you have to have a really good
Well, back in
product.
2008, whenever most of the major companies had to have money to keep from going bankrupt,
Yeah.
if you want to go at it from that route, yeah, they did take government subsidies. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's the first one that made money on a car dealership, right? Or cars or something like that. I don't know. I read that somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Toyota, Ford, you know, he might have been the first to like he might have been faster to become profitable than any of the others. Like that could be a thing.
I got you. I must have read it wrong.
No, I mean it's yeah, I don't know. I
Chris, do your research, bro.
Yeah, that's right.
I do know that profitability is a struggle for a lot of vehicle companies, I'll put it that way. So I think that he has done a better and faster job at becoming profitable, probably more so than many of those other companies. But I don't have
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm.
what
going
you're
for.
getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That could very well be true. I know that Tesla hasn't been around for a very long time, whereas some of these other vehicle companies have been around for I don't know 100+ years.
Yeah.
But actually, maybe at the top of the screen, I can see what year Tesla. Well, where's the description? Let's see. Tesla was founded in 2003, so yeah, hasn't been around for that long, really. It's 2025, so what, 22 years? Yeah, that's actually longer than I would have thought. And yeah, as far as I pulled them up on this Simply Wall Street screener, and it says their short-term assets are close to 60 billion, short-term liabilities are close to 30 billion. So they do have some debt, but they're in better shape than a lot of folks are, and it looks like they're mostly reducing their debt over time and equity, which is, you know, investors investors ownership seems to be going up over time where debt seems to be going down, so that's good.
Also, contrary to popular belief, Tesla was founded in 2003 by two different guys, and Elon Musk joined in 2004 and became the CEO in 2008.
Oh wow.
Oh, I didn't even
He
know.
just took it to H&L, whole nother level.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I mean, you know, it's not quite the same story, but another one that I think about is Facebook, who is now Meta. Mark Zuckerberg, technically, I want to say, didn't actually create the thing. I want to say it was created by some other folks at Harvard. Originally, I think it was created just to be a platform to be used within the university itself. And then I want to say Mark saw that it could be used, you know, as a worldwide platform and sort of made his move to take it over.
And this is one of those situations where I think we were talking about earlier about research and development. It talks about how heavily Tesla relies on research and development. Elon Musk joined in 2004. 2008, they put out their first car. 2010, they went public 2 years later. So they were very interested in getting that public money for R&D.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess with technology companies, they probably do tend to go public much quicker than many other entities do, because otherwise they'll run out of capital probably. I really, to the credit of the CEOs of these tech companies, I really don't know how they do what they do. I feel like if it was me having to deal with an unprofitable company, that would make me feel pretty panicked.
Yeah.
But they seem to somehow they keep it going for years and years while being unprofitable, and that's, I would imagine, a very difficult thing to do.
And listen to this. Following a series of escalating conflicts in 2007 and the 2008 financial crisis, Eberhard, which was one of the founders, was ousted from the firm. Musk assumed leadership of the company as CEO and product architect in 2008. In 2009, a lawsuit settlement with Eberhard designated Musk as a Tesla co-founder, along with the other co-founder. Tarpening is his name.
Oh, okay.
So through a lawsuit, he was designated as a co-founder.
Huh. Yeah. Well, I guess that explains some of that then. That's typically how it goes. You have people that start something and they don't, a lot of them don't do the legal due diligence in advance, and a lot of them end up having disputes and end up in court like that, I think.
And to be honest, with as much innovation as he brought to the company and as much as he changed, it could be as if he was a co-founder, because it changed a lot in those 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
with him as the leader.
Yeah, he's definitely, I mean, just looking at this debt to equity ratio right here, I mean, you can tell that he has, mostly made at least a positive impact on the profitability and the financial health of the company, because, back in, what year was that you said that they had that, well, anyway.
The lawsuit to add him as co-founder?
Yeah.
That was in 2009, the year after the financial crisis.
Okay. Well, that's a little further back than I can see, but sometime around 2019, 2020 is when debt to equity really got a whole lot better, as you can see. And it, as of March 30th, 2025, debt levels were $7.24 billion, whereas equity is $75.418 billion. So, let's see if I can see what I may have already on another episode said what their revenue is, but I can't remember. For 2024, they brought in almost $100 billion worth of revenue. So there you go, right there. That's their revenue number, at least through 2024, continued to go higher. Their net income got a little bit lower, and their net profit margins went down a little bit. And now that they are as big as they are, or as large as they are, I'm sure they're going to struggle more to be as profitable.
And as much talk as there's been out there about it, keep in mind also, the Cybertruck has only been out since 2023.
Yeah, and they.
Speaking of Cybertrucks, I would like to give a shout out to the big man. I need a truck, bro.
You want one? You want a Cybertruck?
I do. Anyway, keep going on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
You talk about Cybertrucks. I got to stop for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of people don't like them. I don't hate them. I mean, they're definitely really different looking, but
we can continue on our subject. I'm sorry, I got distracted.
Yeah, no, you're good.
No. Ryan will even put a DEP magnet on the side of it.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, all I was saying was that over the past 10 years or so, they've seen their revenue grow a lot, but I think they're at the size now to where it's moving forward, it's going to be difficult. I think they've got a lot of competition from other vehicle manufacturers, whether they be Chinese, Japanese, German. All the other major car brands are, I think, sinking a lot more funding into, uh, you know, autonomous vehicle technology and green technology, whether it be solar, electric, whatever, um, hydrogen fuel cells. Other companies have seen the success of Tesla, and I would expect all of them to be much more competitive in the future. That being said, I mean, I could be wrong, and Tesla could continue to dominate the market, but I would be surprised. Um, because there's these other players that have been around for so long, like Mercedes and Toyota and Honda.
Yeah.
I would expect them to really buckle down and compete much more in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Musk owns 12.8% of the company stock in Tesla, and he owns 42% equity in SpaceX.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
40
But in SpaceX, he owns 79% of its voting control.
Did you say 49?
79.
79.
79% of the voting control, 42% of the equity.
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't know how exactly they do it, but I think another thing, at least the smart business founders do, is what he did, which is somehow they make it to where their shares have more, the shares that they hold have more voting power. I guess just at the forming of the especially public entity, they get with a lawyer and say, hey, I want my shares to count as 20 votes each or something. That's just a random number, but
Also, SpaceX is private.
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to eventually see them go public, but as a matter of fact, I'm surprised they haven't.
I was about to say
already
that's
done that.
surprising.
Yeah,
They're not.
I'm not exactly. Maybe the reason they don't is because they're still having profitability problems. Like he might just mainly be funding that from the profits of other things. Because I mean, I know building rocket technology and some of the things that they're doing, I would imagine are super expensive.
Well, however, they're the only game. They're the only player in the game right now, as far as unless you go to another country, as far as getting a satellite up or something like that. SpaceX is what's going to do it for you, and there's probably no telling what that cost to hire them to put up a satellite for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, and that I want to say SpaceX is also the company that did the Starlink thing, which I want to say is going to be pretty useful for people living in rural areas, having broader access to internet via Starlink. And then you also,
people are using it now, right?
oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
already in use now. And then I forget the exact details of the story, but wasn't it not too long ago that even our own government was having trouble getting some of our astronauts back, and so SpaceX went up
Apparently.
there and got them for us.
Yeah,
So,
apparently.
I
Did
think
they
it's
ever leave?
AI says that SpaceX's profitability has been growing, and that it is expected in 2025 to have an annual profit of $8 billion.
ooh,
And that Starlink is a major driver of this profitability.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I could see Starlink being a big help on that for sure. Yeah, because I mean it's subscription revenue, I guess. They just have to come put the thing out and you pay them by the month, just like every other uh way to access the internet. We've all got monthly bills where we have to pay our internet bills. So
Chris, you said 8 billion?
an increase. In 2024, they generated 14.2 billion in revenue, and that was a 63% increase from the 8.7 in 2023.
Wow.
Well,
I'd
yeah.
say they're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, maybe they're not going public because they're doing fine without being public. I don't know.
Starlink has contributed 58% of SpaceX's total revenue in 2024. 58% of that was Starlink.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I don't know how Elon and his leadership will handle that, but what I've seen most companies do is, most of them do not like for a significant portion of their revenue to come from one source like that. So what it seems like many other companies do is they try to, I guess, diversify out and create new sources of revenue that way.
Because what happens if next year another technology comes out that replaces what we currently have for an internet,
Yeah.
that would be a huge chunk gone.
Yeah. Most company leadership, if all their revenue or the vast majority of it is coming from one source like that, most of them will be pressed by their shareholders to be more diverse and to find other sources of revenue, so you're not just dependent